And this woman opened, and she opened the door, big woman, and she was dressed in a sort of kimono.
You wasn't to everybody's taste.
I said, is it all right to come in here? She said, yes, if you have the yen. So,
Comedy's far too complicated now.
So she said, would you care for geisha? So I said, well, if you've got the kettle on.
We didn't obviously at that age understand all the double meaning.
Bring on the lovers, liars and clowns, old situations, new complications, nothing portentous or polite.
He was born in 1917, and this is the anniversary of his death on the 19th of April, 1992. And the people have loved this house and his memorabilia enough to show it to the public.
Of course, it's still lived in by his ex-partner, and so you're going around someone's home.
It's nice to think it's still somebody's home as well.
It's fascinating, and not only, of course, did we see the house, but we got to see the other parts of the house that no one else sees.
The smells and stuff of the house and everything's still there.
It's a nice, cosy house, and it's the sort of house I would come back to.
I find it's almost intrusive for us to go looking at his loved bits and pieces, but it makes me wonder a little bit more about him as a person.
Frankie Howerd's partner, Dennis Hamer, and his carer, Chris Byrne, have now decided to open the house to the public.
Chris has done a great deal, raising money to help other people, carry on Frankie Howerd's legacy for the enjoyment of others, so that we're not just going to laugh at all the films that he left behind, but also we're going to do some good in memory of Frankie Howerd. So with those few words, it's my great pleasure to announce the grand opening.
When they lived down here, they were able to drive 2 to 3 hours to get to Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, and they didn't have to pay for 8 or 9 weeks to stay in hotels.
People around here are extremely kind, very polite, and they know I come here for a bit of peace and quiet, and they're very kind and very helpful.
But see, this is why all day. Come on, hush, Frank was here. He'd be up feeding them. I've looked after Dennis since Frank died, and I've looked after Frankie Howerd's estate.
You said to me, proudly, Chris has been a godsend to me. When Frank passed away, he came and stayed with me and has looked after me ever since. Oh, Chris.
Oh, Dennis.
You and that fucking camera.
Well, you bought it for me, didn't
I know,
you?
but you're not meant to photograph me the whole time.
You'll always see him being interviewed in this chair, and his hand would always go like this, wanting to tell his true story.
Frankie had a nickname at school. It was Nancy. He was slightly effeminate in some of his ways. He never had a girlfriend.
This is his school suitcase. It's got the little coat of arms of his school.
I decided I would enter for the school concert, so I wrote a play called Lord Halliday's Birthday Party. I'd read books, Agatha Christie and murders, and so everything was in it.
It was actually a painting of Frank's headmaster.
Yeah, his name was a Mr. Affleck.
I liked him enormously, but he said, because we couldn't do that. It was considered to be very risque.
They were all rejected because they were all too dirty. Too dirty.
I didn't intend to be. I just got, things, some books and things I'd read, without realising, I think, the implication of what I was writing about.
And then we had this sister, Betty.
Betty was also a Sunday school teacher. She was very involved with the secondary school, used to put on plays. Frankie occasionally got involved too.
It was here that I first gave my first performance, stage performance, I suppose you'd say that. In other words, it's the first time I trod the boards. It was then the Oldham Parish Hall. I was a member of the church as a Sunday school teacher, would you believe? I was a very timid boy, tall and thin, and when I got very nervous and frightened, I used to stutter. Because I was in the army, the earlier days of the war, we did shows in Shoeburyness, in the Garrison Theatre there.
Where he rose to the rank of sergeant because of his skill in keeping the troops amused.
He was in the armed forces and he was in Germany. He fell in love with a German soldier. And he kept a walking stick that this guy gave him.
It just opens and two little cups. But he never bothered with the cups, he just...
Well, when I came out of the army, I went to agents with the intention of trying to, as we say, go on the stage. I was thin and gangly. And I used to stand there looking stupid and sheepish, you see, and they looked at me and said, what do you do? And never, no good ever.
It was an insurance law. His first contract, £1 a week.
I had a telegram. And the telegram said, we've been let down by somebody at the stage door canteen, this show. Would you come along and do it? And I thought, well, why not? And I went on the stage and I did my stuff, and it went very well. Everybody laughed a lot. And afterwards, a chap came to me and he said to me, he obviously heard this laughter. He worked for a man called Jack Payne. He was an impresario, and he'd been a very famous band leader. He said to me, do you have an agent? So I said, well, I wasn't going to say I was down on the uppers. So I said, no, I said, well, he said, would you like some representation? So I said, all right, yes. What had you in mind? Oh, very grand. It's a good piece of acting, I'll tell you. And he said, what do you think about £25 a week? Which was a fortune in those days to me.